Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and over there is Pascal Floor. Say hi, Pascal.
Yeah, hey. I never know what to do, right, in that situation. It's the same when people are asking you, okay, are you able to speak a foreign language? Yeah, I'm able to speak Danish. Oh, come on, say something on Danish. Yeah, all right, what am I supposed to say? And that's the same when you're saying like, okay, how are you doing, Pascal?
Just hi, guys.
Fine. Should I now already get into the groove of things and talk a little bit about my life?
You are the funny one. I am not full of humor. I am very British and
it's
dull.
I think it is just my sarcasm that is perceived as humor. It's just like I'm actually truly an angry person inside. It is. It truly is. You are laughing, but it really is. Yeah.
Scary.
There's a fine line between sarcasm and just like being absolutely angry and just a total dick.
This is what I always say when people make jokes. I'm like, there's always a little bit of truth in a joke. So
I don't know how much truth there is actually to the statement of there's always a little bit of truth inside a sentence like that.
I think if it's like, I don't know, if you joke that someone looks fat in something, I think there's always like, there's a reason you said that, isn't there? It's probably because they do look a little bit fat.
I do remember there was something like that, and Katie was getting back to me like there and saying that exact same thing, and I was just teasing her with something, and I know that I wasn't really thinking that, and I don't even know what it was. It was totally ridiculous. I just made fun of her.
Actually, that's a good segue. We haven't talked about Katie and the pregnancy for very much.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that okay to talk about? How's it all going?
Yeah, I left her because I have no business of being... Yeah, exactly. Don't want to be a dad, mate. Just want to live my single life, go back to Tinder and all that.
Just lift weights and
funny stuff, right? That funny stuff. No, everything is going well there. Actually, funny enough, we just came back from the doctor here today just to double check again, listen to the heart sounds of the baby, which is quite interesting, like a heartbeat of around average 150 to 160. Lots of caffeine in the system already, I guess.
That's quick. Yeah. That would make me crazy, right? I'd like feel like I'm about to have a seizure.
Yeah, it's crazy. And just imagine that being your normal heart rate, 150 to 160. Holy shit, holy shit. This is how, so just imagine a high rep squat set and relaxing afterwards. And this is your normal state, how you always feel with a heartbeat. This is how the heartbeat is from that child at the moment. Yeah, maybe he's doing a little bit of sport there. No, that was quite interesting. And she's now approaching week number 27. And they normally say around week number 27, it has really good survival chances. So yeah, probably I'm going to be a dad now. And that is now really a true thing. So you never know what's happening, right? But yeah, it's getting to the interesting weeks. 12 weeks to go, so to speak.
12 weeks out.
I mean, kind of, right? You never know what's happening. And that's not entirely correct. I think a true pregnancy is like 42 weeks long, if I'm not mistaken.
I am unbelievably ignorant to all of that sort of thing.
Me too. I have no idea. Katie, so I thought that I have somewhat of an understanding of around medicine and stuff like that, right? So the typical Dunning-Kruger effect, right? And sometimes she throws around with terms I never heard of in my entire life. And she sometimes even uses acronyms for that. And I'm just like totally lost. Okay, well, what is that supposed to mean now? Right. And that was, yeah. So I'm just an amateur when it comes to pregnancy, which is actually not bad at all if you really think about it. It would be quite scary if I'm a pro in that.
It's lucky. I think it's typical for the men, and this is a stereotype, but it's typical for the men to be, it's just not something we have to concern ourselves with. Mm-hmm. Although when we do talk about like periods and menstrual cycle, it's something that we obviously have to be aware of for our female clients, and it surprises me quite often how little some females know about that. Yeah. They just experience it and there's nothing more to it.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's exciting time.
Going well.
It's going well. Yeah, I can't really say anything more to that. It's just like a little exciting, and just my typical northern nature comes through where I'm just like, yeah, it's going well. That's all I can say about that.
It's funny you said about you didn't really know how it's going. You just kind of like trust that everything's kind of going okay. I almost brought that up in a client update today about trusting the process. I was like, imagine you were pregnant and it's you just have to trust that everything's going okay. It's like for fat loss. But
no, that's actually a really good thing because you can't look inside of you, right? You can't really, and the same applies to something like fat loss or muscle gain. You can't look inside you and look at the muscle fibers. Are they actually repairing themselves? Are they hypertrophying, et cetera, et cetera? Is everything going well, right? It's just like a matter of time. You can do a little bit of analyzing the data and indicators and stuff like that, but you will never know until the child is actually there that everything is kind of good, right? So yeah, it's actually not that far-fetched, I think.
Just once in a while you get the what's that called? I forgot what it's called. The jelly on the belly and the old scan through.
Why have I don't know what's called in English.
What's it in German?
Ultraschall.
Ultrasound,
exactly.
Yes, there we go. I thought it might give me a clue.
It's still interesting though to see also how the body is changing, and it's crazy actually to see it from the outside, and I can't even fathom how it must be to actually experience it firsthand. Like, this is something Katie said to me, that the ab musculature actually widens up and creates that gap. Yeah, exactly. Creates that gap in the middle. And if the stretching of the belly was too severe, then it could actually be that you need to undergo surgery to stitch the abs together again. Yeah. Never knew about that. And there are even other information that Katie already shared with me that, funny enough, we talked about it here today, that you never hear about until you know someone close to you, and hopefully it's your partner, that is actually getting pregnant or going through pregnancy, or it's yourself, right? So for female listeners. And it's not funny. It's not funny. Like,
oh, no.
Yeah.
Is it too personal to share?
No, absolutely not. I can talk about that. I think that everyone who will be going through pregnancy will actually appreciate it. So some females, not all of them, shit their pants when they're actually giving birth to their child, right? So this, for example, also the days to follow, all the fluid and all the cells and the cell water that is inside of that female, of course, has to come out, right? And then they are walking around with so it's not a diaper, but it is just like kind of, what's it called again? That just soaks up all the liquid that is then coming out of you. But it's like just like, pad. Yeah, that is, you have to walk around with that one, and it just soaks up all the liquid that is actually coming out of you. And that is also that one. Like blood, cells, all that kind of stuff, which is just like, holy shit, that is, if you really think about it, everyone is talking about pregnancy is such a beautiful thing, right? When you really think about it, okay, so sometimes you can't control your body, so you're farting all the time, you're shitting your pants when you're giving birth to your child, and then after that, for a couple of days, you are just leaking the entire time some dead cells in your body, some liquids, and also some blood. Oh yeah, sounds like a good ride. So yeah, I don't know, it's crazy, and no one talks about that. So I never heard about it before, right?
I've heard about the shitting themselves, but I think that was from Charlotte, and I think we have a program called like One Born Every Minute that is quite regularly like on TV. Yeah. We just see it come up and we're like, Charlotte's like, I'm not watching that. She's like horrified by it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Basically said,
maybe we've been too ignorant about it. Maybe actually everyone is talking about that. But we are just like ignoring the shit out of it. So whenever that topic comes up, we are closing off. We can't really hear anything at all, right? Don't know. Maybe we are fading off into a dream world during that time.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm glad that everything's going okay on that front.
Yeah.
But in terms of you said you're shitting your pants at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Literally, mate. Fuck, mate. I'm so exhausted already. But I mean, everyone So like three and a half weeks ago, when I've already been overreaching, right? Then I talked about I needed to set up my training protocol for the next mesocycle like this. I take 3 days completely away from the gym. That is kind of my deload. And then I would go for the next mesocycle and try to push through it. And now it's already catching up on me. So I'm supposed to have one week and 2-3 days still to go. So another week and a half now until the official end of that mesocycle. But I think I will not be able to pull that one through because it's now week number 3, day number 3 from 6. And I was already going to the gym here in the morning, and it was such a pain to push through it. It was a session RP, so I'm rating my session RPs on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is just like literally dying, and I was rating that one a 9, and that was already like, holy shit, I hardly ever
body, right?
Yeah, I hardly ever rate my sessions at a 9 or a 10, and especially not in a week 3. So I was just like, holy shit. After the second exercise, I was already doubting whether I can finish that session. And, oh God, I don't know what to do. One part of me is telling me, okay, come on, you can do it. You can push through it. After that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which gives you an entire week away from the gym. If you're not pulling through with it, it's just like you would probably regret not having done that, right? But at the same time, my body already screams like, hey, come on, give me a break. Especially, this is something I have a hard time actually putting out because I don't want anyone to take it on board with them or apply it to themselves. This is just a true exception for me, just because of the way I needed to structure this mesocycle to make it happen before I'm leaving on holiday. But I've been training since, I think, 8 days now without a rest day, right? And yeah, it's not really a surprise that the body slowly screams and shouts to take a rest. And that's why I just want to actually put it out there that this isn't something I would recommend for people doing. This is even something for me I wouldn't normally do. It's just like, okay, I needed to try it this time just because of the way everything is scheduled and set up. And this is just kind of an experiment. Nothing I would do on a normal basis. It's just because of, the odds around you at the moment.
And it's nice to hear about it because it highlights the importance of a full deload week in terms of alleviating fatigue from the mesocycle before and also allowing you to have a fully productive mesocycle going forward. And obviously you explained why you did it the way you did it. And it's just a case of, we can kind of understand why, because we didn't clear all that fatigue. And so you're kind of going into this next mesocycle with a gas tank not full. So yeah, it's going to be, I feel you in terms of those hard sessions where you're just like, I'm really not sure I've got any more, because I had it before, I think it was before Mexico. Yeah, Mexico, where me and Charlotte discussed going a week prior, but we actually ended up going a week later. So I ended up deloading the week before going because I just couldn't. I just knew if I was going to go in, I couldn't even match performance from the week prior. So I just deloaded before it. Yeah. And in reality, I think if you were to do that, it's 1 week. It's probably a benefit for us, people who very rarely take like actual weeks off the gym, who maybe don't. We do obviously probably more than some people in terms of primer phases or like those sort of things. But even when you should be doing those, maybe don't do them as frequently. So I think it's probably not a bad thing if you end up having to deload a week early.
And also just with all the upcoming events next week. So next week is going to be a crazy busy week for me just because I'm going on holiday. The London seminar is coming up. Of course, because I'm going on holiday, I need to set every one of my clients up for 2 weeks worth of check-in. That takes a little bit longer. I need to write double the amount of mesocycles so that I don't skip a beat, or we don't skip a beat in regards to me and my clients. And in conjunction to that, I have 3 appointments in the morning, which is normally the time where I'm doing my check-ins, which is also interfering with that. So I'm actually more so supposed, because I don't want to let my clients wait, I'm probably needing to do them before these appointments. So on Monday, I'm finally getting my heart checked. So I was waiting for it a long time. I got my recipe for the echo already back in February. And the EKG I did was back in December already, 14th of December, the long time EKG. And now I finally got an appointment for that. It's crazy, right? It's crazy how long you need to wait for something like that. Just imagine that there is something truly wrong with my heart, and I have to wait half a year to actually get an appointment for the echo to check whether there's truly something wrong. Just, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. I mean, maybe I'm a healthy individual, right? But just imagine someone who isn't and who has to wait 6 months. 6 months can be actually the amount of time that ends their lives, so to speak. Anyway, so I got my appointment for the echo here on Monday. So everyone who listens to that one, I had it here today already, here in the morning. So get that one checked. And I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm not really anxious about it, but it's just like, I don't want there to be anything flaring up. I don't want there to be any kind of bad news about, okay, this is how your heart looks like at the moment, and you need to take care of that, right? Yeah. This is not the news I hope I'm getting. But yeah, that's why I'm doing the test. So
ignorance isn't bliss.
Exactly.
But it feels like it is, but you know, it's like a girlfriend who doesn't want to ask his boyfriend if he's cheating because she knows he is, and they just don't want to hear it. But not saying that's what it's going to come out as, though. Obviously,
no, but yeah, absolutely. I could actually ignore that, but doesn't make it disappear or let it disappear, right? It makes things probably even worse, because if we are seeing something, maybe it can be fixed. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, get that one on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I have the last practice session before my motorbike test. So the second test, this time it will be the practical session. Ooh. Needed to wait a month for that one. Hopefully I will pass it, because otherwise I need to wait another month, which would be fucking annoying. But it's once again just the big bureaucracy in Berlin, and that everyone has not enough people for the job or task at hand, right? And that's why you always have to wait for a couple of months before you actually get your shit done and in front of you. It's the same when it comes to those bureaucracy kind of things. But anyway, that is then going down on Thursday. So Thursday the 9th, I have my practice test, and I hope that I will pass. Then I swing my ass on the motorbike. We'll drive around on Thursday the entire day. Then then get back, pack the stuff for London and also the upcoming holiday. Leave to London on the 10th. Spend the weekend in London with amazing people and with Steve.
I'm super amazing. That's what you wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And then leave to I would say, well-deserved holiday on a farm. So that's
farm
the plan.
Will be really nice. I think that'd be so nice.
Hopefully, mate. I'm really so much looking forward for that. Yeah, hopefully the weather will be good. That would be nice.
Man, I think you need to deload next week.
Yeah.
Hearing all of that, I'm just like,
yeah, I'm just thinking, I mean, probably I could manage to do something of training, right? But not with all the other things at hand. And also, especially like I'm doing an echo. If I'm truly overreaching, probably there was, I mean, the heart is really sensible when it comes to those external stresses and stuff like that. And when you're truly overreaching, this most of the time shows itself in either your bloods or in things like these. It's just a matter of fact, right? And because of that, I'm a little bit like, okay, do I really want to screw it just because I think that I have to overreach now, and then maybe screw with the data, making it even look worse than it truly is, and maybe, I don't know, bite myself in the arse in the long term, because it shows up as something wrong with my heart, even though it really isn't. It's just like a massive stressful environment at the moment. I don't know. Because of those things, and also because of the test in the morning, I don't want to just be crushed at the end of the week, then swing my ass on the motorbike and not pass the test because I'm just experiencing massive brain fog or so. Yeah. I don't know. So many things speak against overreaching then. It's just like my ego at the moment. And because I set out that plan, that is holding me back at the moment.
I know exactly what you mean. I think as soon as you make the decision if you do make the decision not to do it, you'll go through the first day and you'll be like, right, fine, like I'm okay. This is normally what happens to me when I make the decision, and it's like, okay, I just sacrifice one day where I'm like really struggling with that decision. Then the next day I'm just like, oh, fine, okay, this is what's happening.
But you're overreaching at the moment as well, right?
I am in my 4th week, but I have a 5th week planned, and definitely it's going to be hard as like RP 10 rating of sessions, but it will happen, because I don't feel like these sessions are really hard, especially my leg sessions at the moment. I mean, legs, even in the first week, even at minimum effective volumes for me, legs are just like, fuck. Just even doing like an AM quad session and even like 2 sets of squats, 2 sets on leg press, I'm just like, that sounds like nothing, but I'm just, this is just, and it's even like RAR 3 or 4, and I'm like, this is hard stuff. It seems ridiculous even saying it, but coming into this final week, I'm in week 4, so week 5 next week, and I'm kind of glad, because I do want to train hard on the weekend when we have Mike and everyone across, because then I guess you'll be deloading during that session potentially.
Yeah, and I wanted to do one. So the last years, I never actually participated in one of Mike's prescribed trainings.
Oh, okay, right? Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, this year I'm going to do it.
Oh, really?
However, the thing is that it would fall on a leg day. And the thing is, I'm getting on a plane the day after. I don't want to experience like absolutely massive DOMs and then go all the way to the airport, struggle with just walking and sitting there, right? And fly all the way over to Berlin and then get into a car and drive to the farm.
You'd be crippled.
Don't know. But I would love to actually do something like that. I don't know. Like just bro-ish all out.
Yeah, I'll be on because we won't be able to train on the Saturday because that'll be a long day. So I normally would. So I'll probably end up resting that day and maybe do an AM or PM. I'll probably do my AM and PM all in one in that last session with everyone there. I don't know if I'll be able to get it all done though, because we normally allow like an hour and a half or something. I have imagined it could take me 2 hours to do that full session. It just take fucking forever. So, but I'm glad. I
mean, I scheduled it out for 2 hour session.
Ooh.
Should work. I mean, it starts at 2 p.m. with the training, goes all the way to 4, and then 4:30 we need to leave that gym again. So could work out for a 2 hour session, because especially like the time before the 2 p.m. There is a window of time where you can actually change and make yourself prepare for that training session. So should work. Cool. Should work.
So yeah, I'm glad that I'm kind of glad I'm not deloading for that, because it's always a bit of a bummer, because you can't not deload really, because you're just wrecked. You are when you need to deload, you need to deload. So yeah, with everything I'm doing, it seems to be going well. Like I said, the straight leg deadlifts are still absolutely wrecking me. I really, really like them as a hamstring movement. I don't know if it's just because you go through phases where, similarly to like food, you like, I don't know, pizza's your thing, and then burgers your thing, and then whatever it might be. So maybe RDLs were like, I had good mornings for a while, then I went to Romanian deadlifts, now I'm on SLDLs. But at the moment, they've just absolutely wrecked me. Like, you can just feel the tension and the tightness of the muscle, and it's just like, blows me apart. So I'm really enjoying those. Did those this morning. But yeah, everything feels pretty damn good. I can't really complain about anything. Next week's going to be tough. My training volume is getting really high. It's interesting hearing about the kind of new literature that's come out where it says about 10 sets per muscle group. 10 sets for a muscle group in a session seems to be like the MRV for that muscle group within a session. I'm certainly getting to that point where some muscles are getting on up to like 10 sets within a single session. So it's making me think whether or not I could trial a higher frequency. I'm just not sure, because this frequency has worked so well and what I'm doing has worked so well. And I also wonder if sometimes, like, where does that 10 sets come from? What repetition ranges is that 10 sets in? Because for me, I don't know, I could do 10 sets of leg extensions, and I mean, I could probably do 20 sets and I'd be still not really sore the next day. I don't know. Leg extensions just don't get me that way. Whereas 10 sets of squats, I don't even think I could really survive that very well at all. So I don't know. But yeah, things I can't really complain about it. I haven't got any niggles. I seem to get like something pinches in my back when I get to my overreaching phases for like upright rows and things. doesn't hurt. It just pinches, is a bit weird. But fortunately, yeah, I think what I'm realizing, at least for I have a good genetic makeup for like taking a beating, in that I know I can take a lot of volume, and my wrists and joints and everything are very big. Like my ankles are just stupidly big, and like wrists are quite big. So I just don't get the niggles that a lot of people get, which allows me to just hammer through. So that's quite exciting. Yeah, I don't really have a lot else to say apart from it's going good. It's interesting to me that at the end of my last mass phase, I had to push up to over 4,000 calories to be gaining. I've stuck at 3,800 post mini cut, and I've just been gaining at that 0.5% per week. So I've gained almost 2% up from my mini cut already, which I'm fine with. I way prefer being on the assertive side, knowing I'm gaining every ounce I can, rather than try and kind of limit any fat gain. So it's just interesting that happened, because I don't know, like, why, you don't expect the body to adapt to the mini cut at that stage. Maybe it was just because I was trying to push to 200 pounds, which I've never got to before. So to get there, I just had to do something stupid, because settling points. So I imagine intake each mesocycle, it will have to come up like, I don't know, 10%, maybe like 5%, 5 to 10% increase in calories. So sitting around 3,800, so maybe I'll have to go to like 4,000 next mesocycle. Then the last mesocycle, where I am pushing to 200 pounds potentially, it would go to like 4,200. But I'm happy with how everything's sitting. Body comp seems pretty good. It will all be for me, it's hard, because I posted on Instagram how I'm like happy with how I'm looking, and like we've said it before, how this off season's been really great and everything's really positive. Like, sure, I worry a little bit, because I have a feeling that I look better when I'm bigger, and this is probably just myself. Like, everyone's their own worst enemy in that regard. But I will be very interested to see how much lean tissue I've really gained once I do a diet at the end of this year and take it down to like low teens in terms of body fat percentage. Yeah. That will excite me, because then there's that thought of, and I actually spoke to Jose on Instagram this week saying, like, imagine if all three of us are on stage together at some point. I don't know if that would even ever happen. But like, if we're at the same show, like a UK DFBA show, imagine that. But yeah, I don't know if I'm not set on competing next year at the moment.
Depends I don't want to compete against you, Jose. No, that's not true. I would really see it from just like stepping on stage, just for
being
fun,
on stage together. Yeah, 100%.
Totally. It wouldn't really be that fun. Competitive spirit for me, at least, because I know that you wouldn't stand a chance against me. So yeah, I would be the one who loses against the both of you. God, Z, oh fucking hell,
He'd be a lightweight. It's fine. You might compete against Z though.
Yeah, probably.
Someone messaged me and they were like, I think you're going to be a heavyweight when you compete again. And I was like, I think you're just pulling my leg. There's no way I can be a heavyweight. Imagine that.
That would be crazy.
Could be a heavyweight.
Yeah, going from 75 up there, that would be just like insane.
One day, if I could ever be a heavyweight, I'll be impressive if I could ever be a heavyweight.
That would be a massive amount of lean muscle, and muscle tissue gain.
It would be ridiculous.
It's insane amount. Especially
5'10" wouldn't be too bad at a heavyweight, actually. That would be quite a nice height.
And then you would already be really, really, really well advanced, I would say.
Yeah, you'd have to be. But yeah, you can. It's funny. I would have never thought that ever possible, and it's only after you do this thing, bodybuilding, for years on years and years, do you realize you don't know your fucking potential. So just do the work.
But it's always what you're seeing with many people. It's rare that you see people like Joshua, for example, who's just like after 4 years is looking like a freak, but who had this massive spurt of growth in the beginning years. And maybe it slows down after a couple of years, right? But for many people, the reality is do it for the next 10 years or 15 years. And first then you see actually a true maturity, so to speak, where you're then like looking quite different to those people who are only doing that for 5 years. I think that the expectations are just unreal for people and are not true, because they are seeing so bodybuilding is still connotated with those heavy big RFPB pros. this is just the norm. When you ask people on the street what is bodybuilding, they always think about like meatheads full on steroids. That's what they think about, right?
Arnie.
It's not like the natural athletes who look in a shirt like just normal dudes who are maybe a little bit skinny, right? But
Chubby.
not well, something like that. And yeah, most of the time for naturals, it's just like train for 10, or not just for naturals, but for bodybuilder in general, train for 10 to 15 years consistently. And even then, it is not said that you will look absolutely insane. Sometimes it's just not in it for you. Maybe you wasted like 5-6 years where it was just like messing around, not doing the right thing that was right for you. Could be that you needed way more volume or way less volume. You spun your wheels because you always got injured, had too many periods where you weren't really on point with your nutrition. All those kind of things can actually take a lot of time away from your true, or getting to a good position where you're just like looking really significantly different to other people around you. And some people will never get there because time is not on your side when it comes to that. And some people will never have the chance of finding out what truly works for them, or they will find out too late, and thus they will never actually get it to truly impressive levels.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I see that all the time, where there's very few people who give a solid like 5 years of their life, like almost like dedicated, nailing everything consistently for 5 years, and they're learning about themselves, adapting and being smart. Just don't see it. And I think that's why so many people don't get to where they are, and why genetics probably play a big role, because those genetically endowed will see superior results initially, or potentially, I don't know. But it's a very interesting discussion. Not to go on too long, I also saw Endgame. So all the listeners, I was still surprised. I can't remember what my poll, I did it over on Instagram, but I'm pretty sure Endgame beat Infinity War, which both of us were a bit like, but yeah, it's a tough
I blame it on it being too present in their heads, of being like, first and foremost, manipulated by media and by the hype, and then just it is present in the head, right? And then looking back, no, that was actually a better movie. But in all honesty, and that is not me being biased or so, right? But it simply wasn't. So Infinity hadn't all the plot holes that Endgame had, and there were many plot holes there. There were many moments where it was just like a little bit cringeworthy, unfortunately. Also many things that simply didn't make sense. Also unanswered question, unsatisfied things, unsatisfied outcomes. And that was, in my opinion, simply not the case for Infinity Wars. It was just like, I had the feeling with Infinity Wars, I watched it, and I couldn't believe that 2.5 hours or what it was already passed by. With Endgame, however, there were many moments where it was just like, okay, I could actually leave it now. Or just a moment where I was just, what is that? You can't be serious now. Come on, guys. Right. And I never had any kind of moments like these with Infinity Wars. It was just like, I don't know. It was a really good movie. And this is MCU after all. So MCU was never made for awards. It's not an award-winning series. But I can see, and this is an interesting thing someone brought up who commented on that last video of Endgame, he grew up with the MCU. Because the first movie, the first Iron Man, is 10 years old, right? So he grew up with that series, and for him, it's just part of his journey of growing up, and thus there are so many emotions attached to that, and it coming to an end is just like emotionally overwhelming, and thus I can see why you're then so hyped up and so, I don't want to call it blinded, but it is kind of blinded because you are putting those pink tainted glasses on because you are just in love with the entire series, and now it's coming to an end. A chapter in your life is coming to an end. And what was it again? What was it? There was some kind of series back in the days where it was the same for me. Some TV show. Can't really remember what it was, but I do remember. That was Harry Potter made with the books. So when I read the first Harry Potter book, I was 11 years old, and the first book starts with him being 11 years old. And then I read a book each and every single year, right? And I think I read the last book when I was I must have been 17, right? And then it ended. And for me, it was just like, holy shit, 7 years or 6-7 years of my life, which was at that time nearly half of my life, especially from a cognitive perspective. He was he was a friend of mine. It was me in the books, right?
Yeah.
And thus I was so emotionally attached to that. Besides that, the stories are just great, I think. I love Harry Potter. But yeah, because of that, it was just like the shit for me. The shit, because I could so much relate to that. There was this dude, 11 years old, up to the point where I think he was even 17 years old in the last book or so, right? 17 or 18. And it was just like, for me, it was me who is in the books and who's living that life. And thus, I can totally see why you're then so emotionally caught up in that. And he brought up a good point, because the movies and the series was also primarily made for those kind of individuals as well. That's why most of the movies aren't PG-18 or so, which some comic book critics actually critique overall, because they think that some comics should be a little bit harder, should be a little bit more bloody. And
imagine that.
Yeah, I can see that, right? But it isn't made for that. It is made for entertaining purposes and for the general public.
And then I have to say, although I think it's probably good practice not to give out any spoilers in these, even though it's been a while since that came out, and we haven't given any spoilers yet. But the same for Game of Thrones, which if I had to rewatch, I think I told you, Pascal, rewatch the ending twice the next day, because I was just like, this is just, oh my God, I was just mind blown. As soon as I saw it, I was just like, oh my God, this is how it's ended. So I'm very pumped for the one. I think, I'll watch it on Monday because it comes out Sunday.
Funny enough, I enjoyed the episode, but I also, because I'm following that, a couple of YouTubers when it comes to reviews and stuff like that, right? They brought up a couple of points after I've watched that episode.
They ruin it for you.
No, I no, it makes you critically analyze the situation, because when I watched that episode, I was just like, holy shit, now it's finally starting. And I was just like, the tension was real, right? And I was just giving into the episode. And then they brought up some really, really good points. Especially something like, okay, first and foremost, the settings were too dark, and I totally agree. I know.
I didn't even actually notice really until after.
I was sitting here with my tablet in my bed, and I thought it is the settings of my tablet that are so low, and I checked it, and it was already set to the highest. Highest lighting, and I couldn't really see anything, right?
I had my blue light blockers on.
Yeah, and I can see that it is mostly to save some money and all that kind of stuff. And I can also see why people got a little bit upset, because they've built up that entire thing about the White Walkers and the Night King, that they are the biggest threat for the entire world there of the living beings, and then they only made it to Winterfell. And after just one episode of war, they are gone, right? Doesn't really make sense. And also,
that was a spoiler.
They've always built up. Yeah, totally. Sorry for that. They've always built up that Jon Snow is the one who will beat the dead, and also who will save the living from the dead. Melisandre already said that in, I think, season 6 or 7, that he is the one. And also, they faced each other in battle, right? He was the chosen one, right? And then I can see why people got so upset that he was stuck there with a dragon and couldn't really get to the Night King, right? And what's about to come next? It's probably going to be war with King's Landing.
That's what we think. But there's been I saw an article saying there's a theory of some other things. So I don't want to read too much because it ruins it for me.
The thing is that the quality of Game of Thrones has declined ever since like season 5, because Martin, so the author, wasn't really... so they deviated more and more from the books. The White Walkers in the books, I don't know if you've read the books, they didn't really play that much of a role there. It was a story, right? But yeah, they deviated more and more from the books. and he wasn't as influenced in the show writing anymore. And you can really see it, right? That other people took care of it, which created a little bit of plot holes, which you can see in that episode as well, that that some things didn't make sense. For example, why did they build up in season 7? Everything builds up to that war with the White Walkers crossing the line with the Night King, all that kind of stuff, and Jon Snow actually being the one. So why does it end with only one night of war with not Jon Snow being the one killing them? So there's just a lot of things that doesn't really make sense from a story perspective of how they've built it up. And I can see why so many people are then a little bit upset about it because it just destroys their world and what has been created and stuff like that. There are even some people who are saying like, okay, because Martin didn't finish the last book. He is struggling with that since 1.5 years already. That he took that one, that he actually was part in that, or that he waited for that season to see what the people don't like. I don't know if there's anything with that. If there's any kind of truth with that, but yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, but I still enjoyed the episode. Even though that there are valid criticisms, it's just like, yeah, I still, it gave me a certain feeling, and that was more so what I liked about it.
This was always my issue with films and things when I was just, or even if you watch like crime, what are they called? I forgot what they're called. We're watching Line of Duty, and when you analyze things critically whilst you're watching, you're like, that shouldn't happen. There's no way that would happen. You're like, stop it. You're not going to enjoy it if you end up kind of destroying it from the get-go.
That's why with Endgame, right? I had such a big problem with Endgame because everything sprung to. It jumped in my face, literally, right? I was sitting there and I couldn't ignore it because it was immediately like, oh shit, why this, why that, etc., right? And if it creates some kind of an environment, some kind of an atmosphere, if it has plot holes, but in general, overall, it's a good movie, then these kind of things that can be criticized aren't really that big of a deal because the overall film is actually good and gives you something, which was my case with Endgame not really the case. And I do know movies that are actually not really good because there are just conflicting things in the storylines, etc. But overall, it's just a nice and well done movie that creates and gives you somewhat of a atmosphere. It's the same when it comes to music. Some music productions are just super high in budget, really well made, was made with the biggest producer in the world and the best studio in the world, but still, it lacks emotion, it lacks just something, it lacks just the spirit, right? And then there's music from, I don't know, especially like the bigger names from back in the days who just created history, right? Some songs aren't really as perfectly produced, or there are, when you really look at the theory of music, it just doesn't make sense, but it works, right? It breaks kind of the rules, but still works because it creates somewhat of an atmosphere. It gives you somewhat of a feeling. And this is what films and movies can create as well. They don't have to be perfect to be a good movie, right? But yeah, you get the idea, right? But some movies try too hard to be something that they are actually not. And that becomes especially the problem when there's so much money behind that. Yeah, I don't know. It sometimes then misses the point of what it actually needs to be instead of what it tries to be.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We should get to the questions because I feel bad. We've already gone almost 45 minutes.
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry, guys, for all the unimportant talk. I don't know. Many people are probably watching Game of Thrones and Endgame and are actually, willing to listen to something. But I will, okay, we can't do the disclaimer anymore now and saying like, okay, skip to that minute. Oh. Maybe I will include that in the timestamps. Just skip it here.
So we have, first question is from, Ivo. Thank you, Ivo, for putting Ivo in short. Actually, I had a chat with a recent consultation with a client. I will call it, I don't actually know how to say his first name now. And he basically was like, it's fine. It's what endears us to you, Steve. Like, it's the best thing about you that you can't pronounce names. It's Elias, but it's actually not how you say his first name. It's like Elias, but not. I don't know. Anyway.
I would have said Elias. But it's the German way of pronouncing that.
So anyway, Ivo, we'll get to your question. Hi guys. First of all, I would like to tell you how awesome the podcast is. Hands down, the best thing to listen to on the internet. Thank you very much, Ivo. I'm relatively small guy, 180 centimeters. We cut out.
There.
How odd.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I thought that you won't notice that, and we're back again to normal.
I am a relatively small guy, 180 centimeters at 146 pounds, and I'm trying to gain some size. I'm relatively lean, but since I work a desk job, I keep my daily step count on the higher end, between 15 to 18k daily. I'm seeing some progress on my lifts in terms of reps and load-wise, but the scale hasn't quite moved in a while. Would you recommend just eating more, even though it is already a chore getting all the food down, or should I consider something else and reduce my daily step count? One more time, guys. Great podcast. Keep up the awesome work you're doing. Cheers.
Ivo, thank you very much for the kind words, first and foremost. I don't know if you wanted to straightly jump into answering the question.
I think it's actually, I think we both agree it's a fairly simple answer.
Yeah, it is.
I would reduce your step count. I don't think, because, I mean, you have a sedentary job, but you have a very active step count. So I don't know what yours is at the moment, Pascal, but mine sits around 8 to 10. And then on the weekends it goes.
Mine too. And I'm making an effort to actually get that in at the moment. It's just, I don't have to, but I know that if I'm not getting in those steps, my maintenance level or my food would even come down further. Yeah. And this is something I don't want. And also I just want to be somewhat active throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it's sitting around 8 to 10.
So for Ivo, I mean, even in a gaining phase, let's be honest, like, what is cardio and steps doing for us? I mean, apart from it will keep a baseline of fitness, but are we really getting much more from that than our cardiovascular work from weight training and high volume, like squats and lunges and all those movements? Like, your heart gets racing. So in reality, I think cardio step count doesn't play a huge role in an off season for someone, especially if they're struggling to get in food. For someone who's struggling to maintain leanness, sure, maybe keep that up. But for someone like yourself, Ivo, I'd reduce that step count down to like 10k, and hopefully things will start moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. No, have nothing more to add there. It's definitely what I had a couple of clients in the past, especially one springs to my mind, which I'm still working with at the moment. He came to me with a pretty highly active environment. So he was training a lot, and then he was fairly active in regards to his step count. So 20k steps per day was normal. And additionally to that, did like 5 times cardio. And we are now at around like 10 to 12k steps, no cardio whatsoever.
Lovely.
Still 6 days training, but we are probably going to go down to 5 days because he will start medical school, which is amazing. And it was a longer period and a longer work in progress to actually get him down to that one. But he was willing to try that. And it just opened up so much more, first and foremost, time throughout the day. And also, second of all, recovery capabilities. They don't just go towards everything now, right? Because if you're getting in, like making an effort to get in like 15 to 18,000 steps per day, it's not a little. Like 18,000 steps is actually quite a lot if you are making an effort to get that in beside everything else, right? It's probably around, I would say, 1.5 hours of walk, up to 2 hours of walk per day. So when takes me around, 40 to 45 minutes for 5,000 steps. So probably something like that then, which is a lot of time, right? And if you just reduce it by half, you have a lot more time for other things in life. And at the same time, it will become probably a little bit easier for you to actually see some progression on the scale. So yeah, I mean, nothing to add there.
Yeah, for me, I think I average like from just casual walking a step per minute. No, wait, 1,000 steps per 10 minutes. So that's
a good general rule of thumb, in my opinion.
For a lot of people, that seems to be the way. No, awesome. So if he was worried, I think like you said, like you did with your client, transitioning would be fine. So I would transition down by like 15, 25% at first, and then just keep going. So our next question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just thought about, you can cut it from one day to the next. However, if that's a struggle with you because you got so used to that, or you're someone who's just a little bit afraid even of gaining weight, taper it just down, right? Make the transition as smooth as possible and as unnoticeable for you as possible, so that at some point you're just like, slowly fading into that.
Yeah, perfect. So next question is from Z.
Oh, the one we're always talking about. Yeah. Shout out for the third or fourth or fifth time, I don't know, Z.
Have you seen Z's recent hair coloring?
Mate, I love it. In the last check-in, I actually said to him, like, fuck, this is amazing. So when it comes to coloring your hair, I think that sometimes there was even that trend where people made their hair to rainbow colors, which is crazy, right? It looks good on camera. It looks good like the day after you've made it, but like 1 week after you've made it, it just looks like garbage, like literally garbage. So you needed somewhat of a stylist who takes care of that on a day-to-day basis. But anyway, I saw Z, and I don't know what it is, but red hair with him, it just looks freaking amazing. I don't know why, but it is him, and he needs to compete like that. And this is something that he also wants to do. Red hair and red beard, stepping on stage, being absolutely
red
shredded.
Beard, goddamn.
That would be so amazing, mate. He will draw all the eyes on him.
His beard being so big, does that actually block part of his physique?
Nah.
Like his chest, you might miss out some.
Only the neck. Only the neck. But
that's the most important part. The neck.
But the thing is, with the neck, then he saves himself the struggle of doing the additional neck day. If that's even a thing. Do you think that there's actually someone who is committing a neck day, who's not specifically working on that body part for something like, I don't know, sports specificity?
I'd be surprised.
A neck day. Something like an arm day or so.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So he has asked, when adding sets from week to week, do you rather increase them on exercises in which the client is progressing nicely, or on exercises in which they aren't able to progress as easily and may be struggling to add reps and load? To answer this question, I understand context is needed when it comes to work capacity, the degree of disruption, and the exercises themselves, etc. I just want to know your general thoughts on it.
So, just my initial thoughts on that one. So if you can outrule that the struggle or the maintenance of that given exercise is not due to under recovering for that muscle group, then I think it may be a feasible way to go about it, because maybe you're just so much underperforming in regards to volume that you need a significant amount more volume to actually see some progression going on there. So yeah, it may be a thing, but yeah, first and foremost, make sure that you can outrule that it isn't being under-recovered.
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it, because this isn't how I assess whether or not to add reps, really. I'm also
add sets,
looking...
you mean?
Oh, add sets, sorry. I'm also looking on, like you said, a recovery basis. So if they're well recovered, they might not be like necessarily progressing very fast, but if they're well recovered, then that's a sign that potentially they need more to then progress even better. And if they're progressing really well, you might be like, okay, so this is obviously in a really good maximal adaptive zone. That would be a sign that it is. But potentially they could progress even better if they're well recovered. And if they have the time and the will to do more, then potentially they do more. So I wouldn't necessarily assess it like you were saying on, like, I don't know, the whether or not they're progressing might not be the way to assess whether or not they need more or less. It's more so their recovery capability, and then that will drive your answer. That's the way I would head at it.
No, absolutely. And I was just, because you can go many ways about adding sets, in my opinion, especially like when you are consciously overreaching, in the sense of, okay, let's say you have week 4, right? And week 3 was already a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a struggle, but you know that after week 4, you're taking that deload, right? So you could always make a case, okay, let's add here 1 or 2 sets to actually really functionally overreach in that sense, to then make the most out of the situation, to then to induce an environment that is really high in stress. I can see a point and a valid or a feasible way to add a set here and there as well in that scenario, even though that the last week or week 3 wasn't really indicating that. So let's say you kept the reps and the load the same, which is not always then saying that you're underperforming or under recovering, because at some point of the level of advancement, you can't expect that you will always be able to add a rep or a load or something like that from workout to workout, especially with certain exercises. I think that maybe this is also where I don't see eye to eye with Mike when it comes to progressing, because he's always talking about, okay, and throughout a mesocycle, you should be able to actually add some load to the bar or actually progress via reps. And I don't think that this is the case for everyone and for every exercise. I've seen it too often with people, and this is not due to being under-recovered, but it's just like due to the nature of the movement maybe. And also just like, no, let's leave it here.
I was just going to say, I think it also depends largely what you're doing with reps in reserve. So I think with Mike, often he's describing that happening and people take it as someone seeing a performance increase, and actually they're just going closer to failure the next week.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That
because he's progressing normally from area of 4 in the first week, right, and down to something like an area of 1, which automatically should allow you to add either rep or something like load on the bar. Yeah, absolutely. No, totally correct.
But like you said, there's people that train at like RAR 1 or 2 every single week, and there's not many people that can successfully adapt at that pace. Yeah. So completely see that. Next question?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sweet. So this question is from Mission, which is an interesting name, and says, is stretching drills necessary for training? Any negative effects if not doing any? Please feel free to share your thoughts. Great content as always, and stay awesome. Thank you very much, Mission.
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to stretching in and for itself, we had recently like 2 people on the podcast. So James Krieger, and now it was, who else was it? Didn't you just record? Mano Hanselmans, which will come out soon, who talked about especially the study about stretching between sets for hypertrophy, because it caused a little, I have the feeling it caused a little bit of stir in our industry, that people just were like, okay, is that the next thing, right? I had the feeling that it was kind of trending up because everyone was interested in like, okay, should I now actually incorporate stretching between the sets? I got those questions, especially also from clients, seen it pump up here and there. Actually, we got asked to ask our expert that question, and it was always boiling down to that probably there's not enough data to support that. It is only like one study, and the other studies that actually have somewhat looked at weren't really applicable for real life outcomes. So more studies need to be conducted to give us a better idea about it. And even there are potential downsides to it. And when we take a look and consider the studies looking at passive stretching or so for a little bit longer, or the studies that looked at passive stretching at the detriments for resistance training, you could always then make up the case like, okay, we have one study between sets that showed a positive outcome, but we have all those other studies who show a detriment when it comes to resistance training, even though that the stretches were most of the time harder or more severe and also longer. Still, you would always need to take those into consideration as well, because it's the same practice that is applied, right? Where the threshold is of like the intensity and also the length would definitely need to be looked at more closely, and maybe there is something positive to it, but at the same time, I don't want to risk it just for possibly a beneficial outcome, right? And also, to be quite honest, so many people then brought up like, yeah, but it's better than hanging on the phone. And I don't know where that elitism came from in the sense of not being, or it's a bad thing when you are on your phone when you are in the gym. I don't know where it comes from, that elitism, in the sense of that you think that you are superior now just because you're not picking up your phone. When I'm spending 6 days per week in the gym, like 1.5 hours long or so, fuck, do you really think that I'm not picking up my phone? And especially when I'm logging my training there? And I mean, yes, you can make the case when you're someone who gets massively distracted and is like, okay, I'm opening up Instagram and I'm sitting there like 5, 6, 7 minutes because I got caught up in a discussion with someone. Yes, of course, leave the mobile phone away. But if you're just checking your phone, scroll through Instagram, and refocus again and do your set. I don't see anything wrong with that one. And I don't know where this kind of mentality comes from, that you're not allowed to pick up your phone anymore to do that, but you are supposed to do some kind of stretching in between or refocusing or so. I don't know. Especially for hypertrophy, it's not like you need to get in such a zone because you're handling such heavy weights. You're not doing a 1 rep max with a squat where the risk of you getting injured is absolutely incredibly high, where the focus is absolutely mandatory, right? You take like 5 minutes before you're going in under the bar and lifting that heavy ass weight. No, when you're doing a bicep curls on an EZ bar or even on a cable, right? Or let's say the dumbbells that are weighing like 12 kilograms, fuck, you don't need like 5 minutes to get in the zone. It's absolutely all right to pick up the mobile phone and do something there, I think. And yeah, sorry, I went off tangent here, but this is always something that then came up in that discussion. Like,
all right,
okay, why not do that instead of picking up your phone? I don't see anything wrong with picking up your phone if that relaxes you. And actually, if that doesn't distract you to the point where you're then still able to do the same amount of volume, the same amount of intensity at the same amount of time, don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I have to agree with you with the whole phone thing. It's funny. I feel like it's like an old school hardcore bodybuilding mentality where it's like, no phones allowed. You have to be working the entire time you're in the gym. And then in the same instance, they'd be like, oh yeah, gym partners are going to push you to the next level or whatever it might be. To be quite honest, when I train with someone, that's the worst thing for me because I end up talking to them and I don't want to keep talking, but they keep talking to me and I can't get away. And I'm just like, fuck, I need to do my goddamn set. I'm going to be hit all day. So yeah, with the phone, for me, actually, otherwise I'd just be staring into like space. I'd just be like, all right, cool. Okay. Am I ready? No, it's only been 30 seconds. I can't do it yet because my heart rate's still racing. The phone actually allows me to switch off a little bit and I can refocus really easily. I could just be totally like, turn my music on, gone.
I know you see it all the time. And this is something that, especially like high-level athletes, I'm not saying that I'm a high-level athlete, but they are doing that since like, I don't know, let's just say someone like Olympic weightlifting. I don't think that they are picking up their phones between the lifts or so. But when they are in the gym, maybe they are, right? Maybe they are. But this is also a more technically demanding skill that they are performing. But they are doing something like that since the age of 5 or so. It's becoming such an automated process to go like from, okay, I lifted that weight. I will now relax for, I don't know, up to 5 minutes or so. And then I will go back and do the same thing again. It's just like they are able to switch the buttons and go into that zone immediately. That is practice over time, right? And especially once again with bodybuilding, I mean, it's not like you're going under the bar and squatting now 700 pounds. Most of the time, how often are you actually doing heavy ass squats or deadlifts? Most of the time, not that often, right? And these are the probably more dangerous exercises that you are doing if you want to categorize them. But something like, as I brought up, maybe even something like preacher curls on a machine. The likelihood of you getting injured there, come on, that's also the reason why you can push it so close to failure, because the likelihood of you getting injured when you are going that far is actually not that high, right? And the funny thing about it, and this is something that he brought up now, which is the irony, so funny, and also at the same time, these people who are saying, okay, if phones aren't allowed, or why are you picking up the phones when you're training? Sometimes even the people that are kind of hypocrites, because they are the ones who are chatting with the people in the gym in between their sets and actually probably spending more time in chatting with their people and getting out of the zone instead of the people who are picking up their phones for 1 or 2 minutes and putting it away again. Sorry, but it's just like the irony in it. And I don't know. Let the people do whatever they feel like doing. If they want to have a smoke in between, let them smoke.
That's probably not a good idea.
Isn't there even a thing like the deadlift? What is it? The deadlift party or deadlifts and whiskey, where people are having a whiskey shot in between the deadlift? I mean, come on, there are worse things out there than picking up your phone. And
Brilliant.
So to get back to answering the question though, I still have my doubts when it comes to stretching in general, like passive stretching. as long as you don't have like massive or severe limitations when it comes to the mobility that need to be corrected so that you can work in a safe manner, I think that training in it for itself will probably take care of that as well. When you are, for example, squatting, the best thing ever for me to improve my mobility in regards to squatting was squatting and making a conscious effort and always going into a proper range of motion and moving in a good manner. And I've been that guy, especially when what was it called again? The app back in the days when also Kelly Starrett came on the market. I was the guy who was doing, but there was an app like Rum, was something like that. Where I was the guy stretching every single night for like 15 to 30 minutes, and it didn't do jack shit for me. And the thing that improved my mobility to the task at hand, which was for me something like squatting and proper bench setup and all that kind of stuff, was just like doing the lifts in a safe manner and consciously forcing myself in the best position possible. And then over time, I got better and better at it.
Cool. Yeah, I think only to say, kind of reiterate what you're saying, in terms of stretching drills being necessary, I'd say for most people, no. A short amount of static stretching, if you feel particularly tight in some areas, less than 30 seconds is a good idea. Then maybe some dynamic stretching, and then just go through the movements. And like Pascal said, use full range of motion when you're training, and that will get you nice and kind of in the stretch positions. And it's funny, we talked about kind of the stretching between sets, and I've heard Mike, Menno, Eric Helm, Scott Stevenson, obviously everyone at Mass talking about it, Greg Nichols, they've all gone over it, and it's definitely one of those areas where it's like there's definitely not enough research yet to really say anything about it. And I'm on the side of Menno and kind of Mike, in which there's definitely not enough to support it. There could be some detriments. It's not something I would worry about trying to kind of implement at the moment.
Just also to add something there, because I said like it may have possible detriments. So let's just theoretically say you are stretching in between the sets, right? When do you know when you did enough to actually see the benefits, right? When is too hard, or too low in the form of intensity, or when is the length of the stretch too short or too long? And because of that, it may possibly end up being too hard or too long, and then actually cause then detriments, or you may be underperforming the stretch and not get any kind of benefits out of that as well. So where is that threshold? Where is that range where you are falling then in the category of when it's beneficial for you? And because we don't really know that, it's just like, why, right? I'm rather than the one who's sitting down, truly relaxing and giving my body a break and looking at the phone instead of possibly trying to get in a range, which is not really categorized and not really known yet and specified. Just say, okay, this is the amount of intensity, because the stretch, especially when it comes to the pain scale, pain is so subjective, right? And
people overdo it.
Especially like stretching. It's funny because one of those stretching studies looked at the perception of pain and also like the severity of a stretch. And people perceived it so differently in the sense of, okay, when is a stretch actually painful for you and when is it painful for someone else, right? And it differed so much already. And that could possibly mean that you're someone who is super sensitive to it or highly tolerant to it, that you're either overdoing it or undoing it and stuff like that. So you don't know where that range is. You don't know where the range is of it being beneficial for you. And maybe you're just pissing away your time, or maybe you're actually overdoing it and actually it causing to be detrimental. So yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I think it's one of those things that come out. It's like a new supplement that comes out and there's one study that shows it's really positive and then people jump on it. And it's very wise to let those people jump on it and you watch from the outside doing what you know works, and then see whether they fall on their face. Because it's not going to be, there's nothing going to be revolutionary that comes out now.
No.
There was something, I don't know if we've got time, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Pascal, because it's particularly come up because I've been talking about the leg press and how I've been trying to maximize my range of motion on it. And then people are like asking about passive range of motion versus active range of motion. And what if a kind of, like you said with a squat, for me, for example, if I squat with just a barbell on my back to get really deep, I can't quite get there. I kind of need a bit of load on the back to really get into that deep position, which is very comfortable for me. And some people argue, it's putting you you're stretching things that shouldn't be stretched or into a passive range of motion. Same with a leg press. If there's no load on the leg machine, like I can't come back that deep because it's just not enough force to get me into that position. But if there's some load on there, I can come nice and deep and get a really great kind of range of motion. And there's people that actively argue for the active range of motion, so you only come as low as what kind of you can come without load. Have you got any thoughts on that? I had thoughts, but I'll let you kind of see if they're any different to mine.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that one, but as a disclaimer, as I already said, like I think two episodes ago, I'm not really that well versed in biomechanics. So when it comes to force distribution and all that kind of stuff, and also, the force curve of muscles and or exercises and all that kind of stuff, I'm not really that well versed. So it is limited what I'm always can share my insights on when it comes to those kind of things. And when it then comes to passive range of motion and active range of motion, I think that these are most of the time probably overused. And of course, always definitely context dependent, because I can see it when it comes to something like maybe the dumbbell lateral raises, that there's definitely from a force curve perspective a portion of the lift that is less beneficial for overall hypertrophic stimulus than other ranges, right? But I don't think that the muscles probably just slack off and not work at all anymore, especially when it comes to something like a loaded squat or so, right? When you're going down, as long as you're not just folding in like a taco and just sitting there, as some females actually can do because of their hip range of motion and mobility. They
fold in on themselves.
You know what I mean? Like just squatting down and sitting there, right? This is something when I'm saying like, okay, do a pause squat, not just sit there and just relax, right?
Keep tension on the muscle.
Keep tension there. And when you are having like a heavy load on the bar, I think that there is probably not a point of force that is not working the muscles, or the muscles aren't active. So I don't think that there is then in such a scenario truly a passive range of motion. I don't know. Share your thoughts.
For me, the issue is when, like you rightly said, if you are getting into that passive range of motion where the muscles are completely not contributing, so like you fold in yourself and the weight is literally like on top of your joints and ligaments. It's like maybe you're doing a leg press and you literally come into the bottom portion and you come really deep, but you're just bouncing through your ligaments. Or like on a calf raise, you come really deep and you just bounce off the bottom of your Achilles heel. But if you're controlling that entire portion, you're getting some passive stretching probably, but the muscle is still controlling that load down, and then you're going to push that load up. So I think for me, if it just gives credit to, I think, yes, you can use the passive range, but it needs to be controlled. And it's only an issue when it's not controlled. So then, because you see people, they can't limit themselves, I don't know, on a bench press, on leg press, on loads of movements. But if they just controlled that extra range, they could still benefit from that extra range of motion, because the muscle, if it's controlling the load down, is still being worked. You're getting more kind of motor unit activation, you're getting more range of motion. So that's where the issue for me lies. And so when people are like, oh no, you should only go to your active range, it's like, the argument isn't like only active range, only passive range. And when we talk about, and I think when Mike talks about like, and Brad Schoenfeld talks about full range of motion, they mean where like full range of motion for the muscle working the entire time. And it's like, no one's saying just come as deep as you can and fold over and have terrible form. Like,
this is something that I think it was even on our podcast, but I'm not entirely certain. Quinn Hannock talked about that.
I need to get Quinn back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that episode.
Mate, he's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
No, what he is saying is that when we're talking about mobility, we are not talking about the lowest you can go possibly, or your longest range of motion that your joints are capable of moving you to, but more so the range of motion in which you still can promote and have some strength output and that you can control, right? And this is the perfect example, is just the squat. You're not just squatting as deep down as you possibly, or that your joints are possibly allowing you to, because probably your muscles will not be fully switched on anymore, or at least that the motor units can't really fire all of your muscle groups because they are just like, I don't know, too turned off or so. That was really poorly stated, but you get what I mean, right? You can't really fully express your strength and force in that giving range of motion. So what you actually want to do, and that is what mobility then is and becomes, is just the largest range of motion where you still can express the force and strength to the highest degree, right? And yeah, I think that especially when it then comes to something like hypertrophy, the full range of motion, I mean, when we're talking about or looking at the literature now, it becomes more and more clear that something like a full range of motion in most senses, in most scenarios, is probably more beneficial than just partial ranges of motion. Yes, there are some studies looking at, for example, triceps activation or something like that, where also then the hypertrophy was greater, but still, when we're then taking a look at the overall design of the study and the overall load that is then being used for something like the tricep, etc., right? But one more thing I wanted to bring up, because you just said like with the squatting, and you can only like go down as much as you can down with a heavy load on your back, is because we had Manu on the podcast, and he was talking a little bit about squatting shoes and stuff like that. And he said he thinks that if you can't do a proper bodyweight squat or squat the way like you do when you have a load on your bar, you need to do something about that, or you shouldn't get lifting shoes or something like that, he said. And I have to wholeheartedly disagree with that. Yeah. I'm a little bit biased, and this is something luckily he brought up as well, as long as you don't have any kind of hip injury, which I do, so I'm a little bit excused here. But still, I'm not entirely convinced about that statement when it comes to the efficacy of lifting shoes for individuals, and also just the squatting mechanics of when you're not able to do a bodyweight squat without lifting shoes, that then you have to do something about that. Don't know, but I think
it's a controversial opinion that he has.
Yeah, kind of. I
saw Joe Bennett did a whole thing about heel raised squats after that, and I think he was referring probably to the study that
really
that Menno's referring to in it. But for me, I mean, I certainly find if I have lifting shoes on, I can squat narrower stance, and I can get more knee flexion, and I get more quad dominance.
Not just this, but also when I have additionally to that a load on the bar, and it doesn't need to be heavy. There's just something about the way my entire body moves that just feels different. And when I do a bodyweight squat, I just simply can't get, even if I were to do a bodyweight squat in something like lifting shoes, I still move different with a load on my back than when I'm just doing a bodyweight squat, even with lifting shoes on.
I wonder if there's something to like a balance aspect. For me, sometimes it might be that where, because I have to activate certain muscles. Because I was thinking, if I try and squat down like a goblet squat without any weight, it's different to then when I have a weight, and I can actually use that to balance myself and get deeper. I wonder if there's an element of you need a certain amount of load to like get you able to balance. I don't know, I'm theorizing.
So yeah, but I think that there's definitely something to it, and this is definitely a thing with upper body or upper back stability, in my opinion. I find when I'm not actively trying to engage my entire upper back, like really, really squeezing it together and not letting it move. So not like caving the chest a little bit in or so, just like minute things, right? I'm squatting so much more better. I mean, so better, so much more efficient. It's so much more stable and strong. And I probably think that this is also caused due to the load and the spinal compression and the actual loading that then gives me the ability to actually recruit those muscle unit, the motor units in your back and the central nervous system, which I'm simply not able to when I don't have anything on my back or anything in front of me. Then I simply can't engage those muscles as efficient as when I have a load. And that would be my theory behind it.
Agree. I think we probably need to call it, don't we? Not going to do another question. We did spout on for like 40 minutes on our own, so we did 40 minutes of answering questions as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, cool. Let's leave it here. And one more plug though. It's the last week of the sale for the London seminar. It's about to go down this weekend. When you're listening to that, it's Monday already, and on Saturday it's about to go down. So still
very
some
excited to
tickets
see
left.
you guys there.
If you don't want to come, it's all right. We sold enough tickets to make it a really good event. But if you still want to join, mate, you're more than welcome. And we still have a ticket for you. Don't worry. Just head over to our website or click the link up here in the card and purchase your ticket. And
Look
see you
forward to
there,
seeing you there.
or not. Or see you there. Or not. Or maybe you're purchasing the replay afterwards. So
if you're coming, definitely comment below and let us know. That'll be exciting. And hopefully they check out the new website, which Pascal and Sam have been working really hard on. So
beautiful.
We've been expanding our team a little bit and getting help from people who know how to do things better than us. And Pascal's been overseeing all of that. And the website looks so much better than it did before. We look like a legit company.
Yeah, I'm just playing the German part here.
Cheers, guys.
Have to do that. You're fired. On German, of course.
Auf Wiedersehen.